Overwatch 2, in recent years, a game title that the general public and casual audience look on with extreme disdain, to the point where it was the most negatively reviewed game on Steam ever after failing to deliver its promise of PvE, of what stopped Overwatch 1 from being developed in 2020, 2021, a Game of the Year winning title, the first shooter to do it and the last shooter to do it in the last decade. It was something that was beloved, and people viewed Overwatch 2 as the thing that took away from a once brilliant game. But do things today in 2025, September of 2025, actually stand in the same place as they did for the last couple years, dating back to 2023, when the announcement came that PvE was canceled and the whole premise, the whole point of Overwatch 2 ceased to exist? We're now in a timeline where we are 9 months out, or 9 months past Marvel Rivals release, the first hero shooter that ever was able to successfully take the crown from Overwatch in its 10-year domination of the arena hero shooter space. And you could say, well, games like Valorant came out, games like Apex Legends came out, but they weren't formatted in the same way that Overwatch was. They weren't true arena shooters that stemmed from the likes of games of TF2 and so on and so forth. Has Overwatch actually turned a corner and redeemed itself as Overwatch 2? And I'm here today to tell you, I actually think in the last 9 months or so, it actually has. I'm going to go into detail and do a full analysis on the big changes that Overwatch 2 has gone through, and we're going to talk about where the game can go next. Overwatch 2 is going to be one heck of a redemption story if they keep doing what they're doing. Let's break it down. Let's start out with the obvious here. Perks. The perks update, guys, really did innovate what Overwatch PvP is. It actually lives up to the title of a sequel, and they clearly were able to take parts of the abandoned PvE and implement it into PvP. And I know a lot of people are going to sit here and say, oh, well, they just copied Marvel Rivals with their team-ups, but they gave it to individual characters. But that's not really true, because Overwatch was clearly testing this kind of progression style with the Junkenstein event in 2024, where people really received it well and enjoyed upgrading their kits as the game progressed. Clearly, it was in development for a long time, and you could say that the type of things that perks originally were conceptualized as were PvE skills, where they were developing these back when they were developing Overwatch 2 to begin with. The perks update was easily the greatest update Overwatch ever had, adding new playstyles and ways to play your favorite characters, giving them unique new abilities that can be intermittently changed whenever they want, like the previous season where they came in and changed a lot of these perks. Things like Echo getting 50% of her copy when she starts to duplicate, allowing for faster playmaking with Echo copy, or, for example, additional sticky bombs as the major perk and the game progresses. So many different characters got perks that completely allowed them to change how their kit was played in the choice and hands of the player. Ana getting an additional bounce out of the Bionade, letting it double hit. Speed boost when she nanos. These are all essential tools in the game that allow you to adapt and play your heroes that you love in a whole new way. This was something that was not possible in the game before, where it was just the abilities and balance patches and whatever it might be. This literally reinvented the way that you could play your character. Even heroes like Bastion getting their self-heal back let him play a different style of play closer to the original Bastion from Overwatch 1, which I actually think, with the tank form configuration, stuff like that, I thought that was a better look and feel and play for Bastion, but they're able to bring stuff like that back with perks and change them at will, adding a whole new layer of depth to the core game that many people still actually enjoyed. In terms, a lot of people just said, we didn't want PvE. We're happy that the PvP is being updated. This is what made Overwatch a successful game. We didn't actually need it. So for them to be able to incorporate this in that way was the best update they ever did. And man, did it come at a time where they needed it the most. Marvel Rivals was hot off its release. Red hot. And if they did not have an interesting update with real competition in the industry for the first time in its entire life, no Lawbreakers, no Concord, this game actually successfully copied, ironically, the Overwatch 1 formula to a T, and it was a massive success for that exact reason. So if Overwatch did not come out with a super interesting and fun, innovative update to the game, it could have been in serious trouble. But they rose to the occasion for the first time in many years and came out with the best holistic update the game had ever seen. Perks were a massive 10 out of 10 home run grand slam success, and they've made the game way more dynamic and way more interesting for anyone who's actually sat down and attempted to play it. One of the biggest complaints about Overwatch 2 was people losing their borders or the visuals of the game looking significantly worse, clearly as if the game was only in development for a year or so, which the developer actually came out and admitted was true, that they only really got to work on the PvP for Overwatch 2 for a year or a year and a half, and that really showed. You had many years of progress on Overwatch 1's UI and how things looked in game, but that progress clearly was not there with Overwatch 2 on launch. But now they've added all kinds of new things into the game that are actually better than what they were in Overwatch 1. The new hero ascension system is borders and different things by character. It has way more depth. It's not just a general thing. You can have these borders and unique things based on your character level, which allows for way more specific grinding in the game that has way more long-form benefits. Many players who just played the game for a long time in Overwatch 1 hit the max diamond border and there wasn't anything left to do. But every time they add new heroes, it lets them scale this functionality indefinitely with new content, always giving long-time players something to grind out. On top of that, they finally recently added back into the game the ability to see your teammates' most played characters based off their hero level in a competitive match. They also added these borders and rank UIs back into the game like Overwatch 1. The UIs and the look of the game is actually better now for the first time in 5 years than it was in 2020 Overwatch, with the hero progressions, the borders, displaying rank in game. As of right now, it's better than it ever was. And it took them a couple years, really 2 years of working on the game to get to this point. But you also have things like competitive drives, which at first they didn't look so great. But now there's like a purple galaxy one this season, and it looks amazing in game. It's like a highlighter border on your screen that looks amazing. These are all massive upgrades that they've made to the game and the UI and display and how you can see what your teammates play. Because before, if they had a private profile, you couldn't. But there's no reason you shouldn't be able to see what your teammates play by pressing the control button. It allows you to recognize what you need to pick in what situation to help out your team. And that's a massive upgrade to the UI, an enormous one. And speaking of UIs and different looks and things like that, in terms of cosmetics, they gave players something that they all asked for quite a bit: better deals on skins. This isn't something that I particularly care about, but, you know, the Maximilian Vault, where it will give you deals for skins, is a very nice upgrade. I want to say massive upgrade because I'm not a big cosmetic guy, but many Overwatch players play it for the cosmetics, play it for the Pixar-esque film, play it for the beautiful-looking skins in the game, which have always been the best of breed in my opinion. They look great, and giving people these deals and actually incentivizing their players to come back and, hey, you know, we're going to throw you a bone here and here's your deals for the week, is another great thing that they did. On top of that, they brought back the loot box system that was the most misguided thing that people would say, all loot boxes are bad. Overwatch 1's loot box system was great. You could play to earn them and earn your cosmetics just by playing the game. They brought that system back and made it even better with a lot of the modernized cosmetic stuff that they're doing. It's amazing if you're a player who wants to play to earn cosmetics. They went back in and re-implemented that system that never should have gone away. Overwatch 2 in this era, in terms of everywhere but one place, has gone in and taken things from Overwatch 1 and made them better in Overwatch 2. It's taken a couple years, but they're now at the point where holistically you can say that's true. When Marvel Rivals came out, the reason why the game was so successful is they innovated on the format of the genre with team-ups and, most importantly, hero bans. Hero bans made Marvel Rivals successful. I think without hero bans, the game would not be nearly as successful as it is and was on its launch. And for the first time in many, many years, Overwatch implemented they never did this before, a real hero ban system into the game after Marvel Rivals did it. And I saw some people sit here and say, oh, well, they were always planning to do it. Rivals didn't make them do it. But they outright admitted Rivals escalated their timeline on when they were going to do it, and they also had 8 years to do it before and never really did. How it was at the Overwatch 1 Blizzard devs was, oh, we're not going to let you guys choose the bans. We're going to do hero pools and pick the bans for you for the entire week. And that's just not what a hero ban system is. And a lot of the people who criticized the Overwatch 1 era Blizzard were right. There was an arrogance in the room about it, and a lot of those things ended up ruining things that the game needed over time. I'm so grateful for them making the game, but that, if you look at old school Blizzard, that was kind of the mentality. But this new Blizzard that we have under Microsoft is very different. And to give Aaron a lot of credit, he's been very responsive in an almost impossible situation where, frankly, myself and a lot of other people had completely given up on their ability to execute after seeing the super tanks come into the game as that was their solution.
I love you, Thunder. Well, don't worry, I'm dead anyway.
I could hit.
I'm nanoed! I'm nanoed!
Play copy. Still low?
He didn't even get the mega! I'm nanoed and damage boosted against the Hoggus Reaper, and they don't die! But man, not to be negative, the new hero ban system that they put in is actually much better than Marvel Rivals. In a 3-month time span, they turned around and implemented a better hero ban system than their competitor who came out and took their lunch money for the first time. That was the best turnaround for a systems upgrade that I have ever seen a game do. And Overwatch's hero ban system right now is better than Marvel Rivals because you can't duplicate ban. One of the most frustrating things in Rivals that happens is when you both ban an annoying character and essentially you've completely lost a ban slot in competitive. But in Overwatch, that can't happen. It's an absolutely brilliant system that made the game quality so much better that lets players curate their competitive experience, right? If I don't want to play against Widow, which is one of the big reasons why I didn't like playing Overwatch before, I think she's one of the most overpowered characters in the game that, especially in 5v5, changed the entire flow of the game just by being picked. I can now ban that character and my experience becomes way more enjoyable. For some players, that Widowmaker character is Doomfist. For some players, it's Moira. For some people, it's Sombra or Tracer or Genji. But now you have the power to help curate your experiences in game based on what you want. And the system was an absolutely smash, grand slam, home run success. Another big W for the Overwatch competitive space that it desperately needed many years in advance because so many metas that were unfun and abysmal to play would have been completely mitigated by hero bans. The problem would have been almost totally solved. Double shield, goats, the big staple problem children of Overwatch 1 that destroyed the game cannot exist in Overwatch 2, and the players, the customer at home, has the ability to curate that experience. An absolute massive win. Another advantage that Marvel Rivals has missed out on compared to Overwatch is their new map voting system, where you can actually, again, further curate your own experience by voting for the map. And it is RNG who gets the hit, but a lot of the time, if you're like me and you don't want to play Havana, you don't want to play Circuit, Or if you're like Jay, who hates Dorado for some reason. Jay, I don't know why you hate Dorado, buddy, but that map is not that bad, especially with the rework, right? You can vote against that map and get a curated experience for yourself. These are the types of things that Overwatch players have been asking for literally 6 or 7 years now. And for the first time, all of these major things have come within a 6-month time span. Within 6 months, there's been more progress to improve Overwatch from a systems and format perspective than it got in literally 5 years. These updates in the last 6 months are better than every change they ever made from 2019 to 2024, even early 2025. That is a 6-year time span. And I would take these updates over every good thing, everything that they did for those 6 years. This current iteration of Overwatch is better than all of that. And it's not close. It's not close. Because if there's a bad balance patch and some character is OP, you're not waiting 2 months for Blizzard to come back in and fix it. You can just ban that character. It's great. This is something that's unprecedented in Overwatch before, and it's an amazing change to the game. There's all kinds of new ways to experience and play Overwatch, and I think that the new mode Stadium is the embodiment of that. The new stuff that they've added to Stadium really is the next iteration, and it's the first time that they've truly tried to reach for a higher ceiling in Overwatch. And perks are great, don't get me wrong, but the depth that Stadium could potentially bring to the table goes so far beyond anything that Overwatch has ever done. In fact, it's a lot more like the Borderlands games. Speaking of Borderlands 4 next week, I'm excited. Guys like me have always asked for that kind of customization and depth and builds, and it was the most exciting part of PvE that I was looking for. But with Stadium, they're looking to find a way to actually introduce that into PvP. And what's so interesting about Stadium, full disclosure, it's not there yet. There's a lot more they have to figure out, but they have it in the game the way it is right now to live develop the game, very similar to what Deadlock is doing. There is no better place to get feedback and get answers and explore ideas than to do it in a live service market directly to the player. I think it would be a big mistake if they hid Stadium behind closed doors and didn't let people play it, didn't let it be tested, because the way it's formatted right now is very much so more like a quick play. It's not competitive at all, in my opinion. I don't think Stadium is competitive at all. It's got like the systems and things for it to be competitive, but it's not a true competitive experience. It's very much so like a test, and it's clear that they're live developing it and figuring out how to put characters into this style of Overwatch that they can build off of. It's the same thing they did with the Junkenstein's event last year where they were testing out perks, but they're doing that with Stadium live in front of everyone's face. And is it going to be the next Deadlock? I don't know. I think it's way too soon to tell. I think they've got a lot of formatting things that they have to figure out in terms of making it more competitive. It plays more like an arcade right now, but it's still a fun new way to play Overwatch with way more depth and builds and creation that the previous game in Overwatch 1 couldn't come close to. Overwatch 1 could not come close to anything that Stadium has to offer in terms of what the customizations are, how to play as your characters. Stadium is Overwatch 2. It is. It is Overwatch 2. It's just taking time to get it developed, right? And I am excited to see it, but there's one big problem that Overwatch has. I've sat here and I've sung its praises for 20 minutes because I do think the last 6 months have been the best in Overwatch history. Ironically, the one time where it falls behind and has to compete, which is one of the best things that we should be so happy and blessed about with Marvel Rivals. There's one thing that is holding Stadium back the most, in my opinion. And there's one thing that I will give them credit for. You can play all different types of Overwatch with the new formats now. If you preferred 6v6 open queue, you can go play 6v6 now. It's not rose-tinted glasses and nostalgia. Some people genuinely preferred that format and that style of the game. And now that's accessible to you within a live 6v6 version of the game, which is where I spent almost all of my time when I play Overwatch nowadays. It's only really in 6v6 open queue with bans, or on Marvel Rivals, where a lot of the 6v6ers ended up going because it was clear that Marvel Rivals was all in on their format. Ironically, the same format that gave Overwatch 1 all of the success that it could possibly have. It stemmed from the fact that it was not 5v5 role lock with super tanks in the game. But that, to me, is the biggest fault of Stadium. The fact that the matchups are still that lopsided with one super role running around the map makes it unapproachable. And anybody who tells you that, well, you're super as well and you can build your kit as well, ignores the fact that that tank is also scaling and the matchup is never even close to even. It's nowhere close to even. The tank has way too much impact on the game compared to the other roles. And that is the only major issue that Overwatch 2 has is its formatting. And I'm going to talk about it now. While it is super important to note, like I said, you actually can play the 6v6 mode. Because 6v6 open queue is not the official format of the pro play, of all of these things, all of the main parts of the Overwatch community are still playing 5v5 role lock, which if that's the direction that Blizzard chooses to go, that is the direction they choose to go, and that's what they want to support. 6v6ers, you guys don't have the right to complain necessarily because they did, to give them credit, actually implement the format that all of us pushed for very, very hard. In fact, I think that all of the excuses around 6v6 being a terrible idea and how it would never work, while it was all gaslighting the entire time and everybody knows it, the success of Marvel Rivals doubles down and makes it irrefutable that if you phrase this question to people, okay, if Overwatch was such an industry titan for 10 plus years that no one could ever compete with it, why is it that the first time a game ever did, that game, okay, let's go head to head and compare the games. Does Marvel Rivals or Overwatch have a better game engine? Not even close. Overwatch's game engine trumps it by a mile. Not even close. Overwatch's game engine is significantly better. Okay, well, who had better systems at launch? Well, Marvel Rivals did with the open queue with hero bans, great queue times, their ban system was great. We'll give it to Rivals, but since then, Overwatch has implemented a better hero ban system. Okay. What about the hero designs, right? What about the heroes themselves? I mean, maybe you could give Marvel a bit of an edge there because the IP is so big and the designs were crazier and out of the box and they had team-ups and all that stuff. But since then, I think perks have leveled the playing field, if not surpassed team-ups, because you aren't relying on another character and your teammate to get access to your perks. You can do it on your own. Okay, we'll give Overwatch a slight advantage there. So if the game engine's better, they caught up on formatting and systems, right? Well, formatting. They caught up on the systems like hero bans and stuff like that. They caught up on the Lord progression stuff with their hero progressions and all of those other things. The battle passes are relatively similar at this point, where everything's close. What is it that Marvel Rivals does better? And I'll say this, the actual sustain abilities in Rivals and the support ults are way more frustrating to play against in Rivals than they are in Overwatch because they aren't 15-second ults. So despite all of those things, how was Marvel Rivals able to capture the hearts and time of so many players out there in the world? Could it be that it is the formatting of the game, guys? Aaron, I'm gonna ask you a question, and I'm gonna leave this as a question to anybody at home, okay? Do you guys truly feel that in a PvP game, and it could be Dead by Daylight, it doesn't even have to be a shooter, because Dead by Daylight had a similar problem, which is why I find this so fascinating. that it's acceptable to have one role on the map that is significantly more powerful, and I'm not talking 1.5x, 2 to 3 times stronger than everyone else on the map. Oh, mama.
Don't use ults, don't use ults, don't use ults. Do not use ults. There we go then.
What about the others?
Break down too?
No! Ball, shoot the ball! Bro, fucking 5v5, man! Super tanks are the only thing that are ruining Overwatch 2, and the 6v6 open queue right now is the best iteration of Overwatch I have ever played in my 10-year time. It's the best iteration of a hero shooter I have ever played. Why, Aaron? Even in Stadium, this is true. Why do you guys think it's acceptable internally to have the tank literally be 3 to 4 times stronger than everyone else on the map? The same problem still persists and ruins 5v5 to this day. There is too much power on the tank. Way too much. Not to mention, all of the problems that Hawk and I talked about in the 5v5, 6v6 debate are more true than ever. In fact, we've been proven right on a lot of these things. Things like the Roadhog rework, where everyone came out and said, oh, just rework the tank. How did that go, guys? Because that just got reverted. Thankfully, it was a very smart decision to revert it. Hog's skill ceiling was gone. You can't fit a square peg into a round hole, and a lot of these tank designs have to be homogenized. As Hawk said, they all have to be similar and do everything at once to be a super role, and that is a fundamental flaw of the format that really, I think if you look back on the 5v5 and 6v6 debate, maybe there's a chance, and the conclusion I've come to has changed. I knew it would be one of two things. It would be, is 6v6 roll lock better, or is 5v5 roll lock better? But the queue times might truly be impossible to be competitive with in the 6v6 roll lock format, in which case the question you have to ask yourself, and where does it put, because I don't even blame 5v5 for it. I think going to 5v5 was the second worst decision that Blizzard ever made. But the number one worst decision after playing Marvel Rivals for 9 months that Blizzard ever made, that I was on the wrong side of history on, was going to roll lock. All of this stems from roll lock, guys. I'm not talking about roll Q. I'm talking about roll lock. Roll lock needs to be thrown in the dumpster. It needs to be gone. It needs to go. And I think that's where the 5v5 argument is frankly correct in queue times. Could they have done things to make queue times more approachable for tank? Is there a way to make queue times sway between each role? Yes. And they didn't do enough of that in Overwatch 1. But holistically, looking at the game and looking where things are at and looking at the systems that Marvel Rivals has put into their game, where they have a preferred role queue built into the matchmaker, Overwatch must get rid of roll lock. I think it was the biggest mistake because 5v5 stems from roll lock. Hero designs like Roadhog and different unique characters like that, their ability to design unique characters with unique identities became so much more limited when we went to roll lock, because heroes like Roadhog always functioned as a third tank flex DPS character. And with a lot of the new things in the game that they've added, the big problems that come with open queue have been heavily mitigated with bans. Goat's comp can't really exist to the degree it does with a 30% heal reduction DPS passive, with characters in Rivals like Marine gatekeeping the tanky tank comps, Ramatra cleaving through shields, Queen with her wound damage. There are all kind and perks allowing them new ways to mitigate the big problems on top of bans. Where this all started to go wrong was roll lock, and I wish I had seen it sooner. Even I was wrong about this. I'm not like some guru prophet all the time. I'm human. I'm wrong too. We all are wrong. But what makes a great team different from a good team is the ability to take ownership of mistakes and go back and fix them, like they did with this Roadhog rework. Aaron, if you see this, where someone from Blizzard sees this video, many of us have gone off and played Marvel Rivals Open Queue with bans for 9 months. There is a middle ground here, and it may be, just maybe, when we're debating 5v5 and 6v6, both parties were right on certain things. I think the 6v6 camp was right when it comes to the actual gameplay loop and designs and things like this. And I think the 5v5 camp was right only really on queue times. But I don't blame them looking at the state of the game and what got us to this point. What created 5v5 was roll lock. Roll lock was the causation. 5v5 was the effect. We have to go after the causation when you're problem identifying. You have to stop it at its root. And roll lock was the root of that problem. If Overwatch abandons the 5v5 roll lock format and even goes to 5, you want to stay 5v5, 5v5 open queue without tanks being 3 to 4 times stronger than every other matchup in the game, that would also be okay. But those super tanks and the tank designs of Zarya being able to double bubble herself and run down mid and just be significantly more powerful ruined the power balance between the roles and took out so much depth between the matchups in this game. And if you play 6v6 open queue for just 1 or 2 hours, it becomes immediately apparent how much more fair the game feels. And you said this, Aaron. You pride Overwatch on being a competitive shooter now, and you're leaning into that audience, and I think that's what you probably should do because it's got the best engine for a competitive game really ever made. Tell me how a game is competitive when matchups like that are that unfair. When I'm going up against a tank Doomfist that is 25-5 and we're bulldozing his team and his DPS are 13 and 15, but we literally can never kill the Doomfist in that matchup because he has so many more stats than we do with better cooldowns and all of these other things. This game was at its peak when all of the matchups were relative and it was about how you played rather than what role you were on. But this game has become about what role you're on more than anything else. And this problem was in Dead by Daylight with the killers. This is a problem you've seen in many different games. I'd ask and I'd leave this with a question. Do you truly think that that power mismatch is healthy for the game? And I think, and I would say the success of Marvel Rivals, while it has a worse engine, you've caught up, granted it had better formatting at the start, there's no reason that game should have been able to come in and compete. And it's not a coincidence that for the first time in your entire time working at Blizzard, that they came out and were able to take the crown for the first time ever. It's because they copied you. They took a page out of your book. They did what you all did. And if you return to that, with the new modern systems that you all have right now, this could complete the greatest comeback story in multiplayer shooter gaming ever. This will be the greatest comeback story in the history of modern shooters. And I hope you guys can get it there. They've done great work thus far, guys. One heck of a story, and they're so close. But man, there's just one last obstacle in your way. Are you guys willing to do what needs to be done and revert the biggest mistake that was ever made? And that was roll lock. And I say that from somebody that was on that train from the beginning, and I could not have been more wrong. To wrap this up, guys, this has been the best year of Overwatch since really the glory golden era back in the day. They've really found their sense of direction, and they should take enormous pride in their ability to rise to the occasion and compete where they can. There's just one last piece of the puzzle left, and really, you know, who am I to say that that should be exactly what they do? That's just my opinion, what I think needs to happen after going out and exploring and playing Marvel Rivals and seeing what works and what doesn't, and having a whole new science experiment in front of our face to show us what can work and what cannot work. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. Are you still playing Overwatch on a day-to-day basis? Have you tried it since the reviews flopped and everything went down, or Marvel Rivals came out? What would you like to see in the game? What do you think about what I said? And what were some things that you would like to do differently, or things that you would change? Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I think we might come back and do Reaper Fridays on 6v6 Open Queue. I think Overwatch is at a state where it can definitely be played, especially with the hero bans and perks and all that. So maybe Reaper Fridays on 6v6 have to come back. Thank you so much, though. I'll see y'all later. Take care. Much love. Peace out.